Hello there, people of the internet. It's your boy, Skinny Penis, with another fresh from the press released replay. Yep, today it's not my replay, it's Mr. Lucart 2003, famous brain player. Yeah. And he actually committed to the auction for Maine and played it. And obviously he's shitting out insane damage games, and this one here is pretty absurd. So I thought, why not continue the video? It's not a series, but let's just make the next video about Maine after we did Wisconsin, and then I'll probably cover Rhode Island at some point too, and talk a bit about the hubris bullshit that Wargaming is shitting out in terms of super ships, compared a bit to the other super ships, or not super ships, maybe super BBs specifically, and the hubris which they are. And yeah, so what exactly is Maine? Most people tend to tell you it's just an upscaled Montana, which is, if you want to dumb it down for everyone, it's true. It is an upscaled Montana, but it gets a lot more survivability and also a lot more damage output. And the argument about that it's just a similar to Montana kind of ship in terms of damage output, we can go into that while we're watching the video. So, basically the thing is just a 16 gun Monty with 0.1 Sigma less, I think. Or less Sigma. The boat also gets the funny F key, which is not an F key that pumps your damage up to absurd numbers or decreases your dispersion to insane levels like Satsuma. The F key is giving you AA, which is debatable how important or how effective that is, though it has a lot of base AA, so carriers will lose, I guess, a few more planes if you actually decide to use it to deter the carrier from striking you over and over again. Then again, you have the same issue as with other ships, that your AA mounts will get destroyed over time. And the F key also reduces your fire and flood damage that you take, which means if you're on a double fire and a flood or whatever the fuck, like generally floods and fires, you can just press your F key and you basically take no damage. I think it's minus 60 or minus 65% on the damage taken, which means you can actually just let fires and floods tick. Which also brings us to how to spec that boat. Most people will most likely go into the damage output area again, where they pick Furious and Heavy AP, because the F key basically can make up for the loss of tankiness. I, for once, would say that speccing it mostly full tank or full tank again is probably the best alternative you have here. Once again, battleships are a positionally based ship. It's not a DPM battleship. You can maybe argue about like HE spam battleships, like pure HE spam battleships, that it's maybe interesting to go into damage output, but most likely on every BB it's simpler to play and more effective to play, also in terms of playing for the team, if you go full tank and you can just withstand more fire and hold your positions for longer, which allows you to stay closer, get shots in easier, get shots in from closer, which means you will hit more shells. And yeah, so I personally would go full tank. He also takes the AA skill here, which means the Nakim striking him will basically just make his consumables come off cooldown super fast. He's also running the coal mod, so he gets 30-second DCP, which is disgusting and stupid. Obviously the Nakimov here isn't the best example for a carrier, because the Nakimov doesn't have to continuously strike you in your AA. It's not like a squad that has to drop 2 or 3 times, where the AA skill comes in handy real quick and does a lot. The Nakimov isn't actually providing you that much in terms of the 2-point AA skill, because it just comes in, strikes real quick and fucks off again, so it's not active for long. But yeah, how does this thing compare to all other super ships? That's probably the main question. And the argument that Wargaming is just releasing hubris amounts of dog shit in terms of super BBs. So yeah, it's busted as fuck. Most ships can't deal with it. The main gist of it is, though, that it's slightly less annoying to deal with as a cruiser. Not because you can actually kill it faster, that's not the case. You can actually, or most likely you won't be able to kill it at all, especially compared to other super ships. Apart from maybe Uchakov, you will have an insanely hard time killing it ever. So, but the thing is, it doesn't point and click as easy as other super BBs, because it doesn't get the 30 or 32 overmatch, which all the others got. So you can kind of disengage from it maybe a bit easier. You can kind of tank it longer, but in the end it doesn't really make that much of a difference. It just lets you live longer, so it's more tolerable. But you won't really make any progress of it if it has hands or the player playing it has hands either. The car went fully into tanking basically, and broadside volley with lots of shells rather than overmatch, which also, by the way, makes it a great HE spammer immediately. Like the shell amount would allow you to shit a lot of HE, which, by the way, goes again into the category of why are battleships better at dealing with other battleships through HE spam than cruisers these days. I, for my part, always thought, but that's just me in my humble opinion, that most of the cruisers are designed as HE spammers from kite, range, or on an island, and the cruisers are the damage dealers. So basically, the battleships tank, the DDs spot, or like try to fight for caps. The cruisers support the DDs with utility, and the cruisers support the battleships that are tanking with DPM. But why do we reach a point where the battleships become so unkillable, but also at the same time so great at spamming HE and DPM into other battleships that in terms of, or if you want to deal with a battleship yourself, it's better to just be on a battleship? Like, how did we reach that point? If battleships angle properly or have hands, it's generally the easiest way to deal with them. Like, first of all, tank them on one side and then kill them on the other, is just playing these new battleships yourself. Rhode Island can shit HE, Wisconsin can shit HE, Maine can shit HE, Bungo can shit HE. Bungo HE is actually extremely effective, especially with the spotter plane up. The alpha is insane, and because you hit so many shells, you will get the fires. Maine is also insane because it has insane shell count. So yeah, you're better at dealing with your own class through HE spam than the class that's designed to do it. So what's the point of releasing stuff like Yodo? Yeah, Yodo. Or a Castille even. Like, what's the point of a Castille? Like, a Castille will never be able to kill a Maine. Like, sure, Maine doesn't point and click it into the ground instant, but Maine will also never die to a Castille. That doesn't happen. Like, what are we doing over here? So also the next thing is, the ship got released, right? And basically most, let's say, top-level players immediately realized it's one of those broken types of super ships, specifically Super BBs again. Like, no one would ever say that any of the Super BBs are balanced. I guess the only Super BB that's kind of tolerable because people play it like monkeys is Hanover, and Hanover has to be decently close to have impact on the fight. Also, like, main gun spec Hanover is still extremely toxic and cancer to deal with. The secondary specs are mostly the reason it's tolerable in randoms, because people spec it completely incorrect, and also, for example, most people drop fire prevention on it, so it instantaneously burns down and gets one heal, because people are too stupid to spec fire prevention, which is very funny. So yeah, like, no super ship is really balanced, and then this thing gets released, and the first shit that... look at the dispersion, by the way. Pretty funny. It's adorable. It's adorable. Because the dispersion is exactly what people complain about. The first thing Battleship Monkey says, and the first thing Battleship Monkey critiques, is that it doesn't immediately one-shot everything immediately on cooldown whenever you see something, whenever you shoot something. It doesn't one-shot everything instant. Yes, and... like, we have reached a base level of Super BBs and Tier 10 BBs, where I guess the base tankiness of all of these ships, or the concealment and speed to disengage with, so I mean, that is kind of tankiness, is so high, so these ships are so unkillable, that the only thing Battleship Monkeys think about is if a battleship one-shots everything or not. Like, it's only the guns people care about. Like, so at this stage, Battleship is just its guns, I guess. Because we all accept, or we have to accept, that the hulls and the tankiness, the heals and the gimmicks and everything on these BBs is unkillable. Or if the enemy player knows what he's doing and he has hands, it's unkillable. Because in a Rhode Island, I may not be able to randomly push in, but I don't need to, but I can just disengage with my concealment and speed and shit HE, or AP from range, whatever you want. And in this car here, I will never die to HE spam ever, so I just have to angle and keep slight distance as well. Also, On this car, by the way, the gun angles are insane. You can push in or kite away. Specifically pushing in, your gun angles are nuts. So now that you saw the buff on Colombo and that it's actually like extremely tanky pushing in now because it can angle properly, and it has like the most disgusting gun angles on, I guess, tier 10 BBs, this car here has similar gun angles. Like, you pushing in doesn't allow the enemy to really access your side blading. Like, even improved pen angle boats have a hard time punching your platings with AP if you're pushing in, and you can still use all your guns. It's insane. So yeah, the first thing people said when they saw this car is, well, yeah, it's not much of an upgrade above Monty because it loses 0.1 Sigma and it's similar damage output. And what the fuck are we talking about here, man? The thing is unkillable as fuck. It gets 115k base HP. Like, brother, the main reason you could deal kind of with bad Super BB players or Super BBs in general is that most of them don't play fire prevention, and even if they do, fires are percentage-based damage, so even if they have high base HP, you still tick for the same amount of damage percentage-based. Which it doesn't matter if you have a fire on a tier 8 or a tier 11 BB, it ticks for the same amount. So you had like some way of deterring the enemy super ship from doing whatever it wants. But now on this car, you basically removed the effectiveness of fires completely while keeping the base HP pool high, which means you have to go through Alpha Strike on it, which then also means if you just angle properly with the insane gun angles and you angle properly with the platings, because it has 38 armor, like all the other American BBs, yeah, like, the only threat it has again is torpedoes. It's like the same as with Wisconsin or Rhode Island or most other BBs these days, like Loria or even a Kreml still, or like an Ohio or a Vermont. If you don't eat torpedoes, main guns of other ships, specifically cruisers and gunboats, will never kill you. It may be annoying if a gunboat spams you the entire day, but most of those battleships would never die in a 1v1 to a gunboat. And given the fact you never die also gives you the ability to disengage from those fights over the course of 5, 6, 7 minutes. Like, you can either disengage immediately, you can disengage in 2 minutes, you can disengage in 4 minutes, and you will still survive. You can dive an island, you can run away, you can like run away, draw the enemy in, and then like your teammates or you force them closer and they can't chase anymore. So it may be annoying to withstand HE spam, but in the end, it's meaningless. It doesn't kill you. So what's the problem? Like, at this stage, I'm fascinated by the narcissism and ego, or like the egotistic way battleship players think, where they take everything for granted that is not guns. Like, the battleship itself is gets all battleships basically get gimmick packages in terms of armor, concealment, speed, heals, F keys that make them nearly unkillable. Then we also have the captain skill buffs, for example, the improved repair party readiness bullshit buff, which is mind-boggling too. And the first thing people do with this shit is they think about picking Furious and heavy AP, or they only talk about the effectiveness of the guns, where it's like, ooh, I don't one-shot everything immediately. Ooh, bad battleship. Like, what the fuck is going on? Like, I mean, what's the point of Yodo and Castille once again? Like, those boats, those two cruisers are still designed around the fact mainly that they just deal damage. Like, Castille has no radar, no like heavy DPM, let's say. It's just mainly a damage dealer against slightly more armored targets because it gets more than 40 base pen on HE. And it can punish, that's the fun part, it can punish cruisers with the F key, the AP. It's the same thing as Yodo. Yodo can penetrate 30mm cruisers with its HE, but it will never kill a battleship with its HE spam. The torpedoes, by the way, are insanely easy to dodge on Yodo, so this is like not really an argument that the torpedoes are worth anything, because in order to actually hit them and kill a BB with them, you have to be so close that the battleship will probably two-shot you below 10 kilometers, and you reach maybe 6 kilometers distance to the battleship, and then you already blow up, because you can't withstand any sort of pushes or close-range engagements. So what's the point of those cruisers? They don't deal anything. Also, what's the point of something like a San Martin? Now, people will maybe say San Martin is played in competitive. Yes, it's played in competitive because it's a 1 BB CB meta, or you have very few BBs. And the San Martin is used on flanks to deter other cruisers, because San Martin versus other cruisers makes the game super disgusting because it zones DDs for itself, it spots for itself because it has insane concealment, and cruisers in a 1v1 can't commit on it and kill it. You know how you kill a Sun Martin on a flank if you want to? You run a battleship into it. Because why? Because the Sun Martin will never be able to kill the battleship, and the battleship actually outdamages the Sun Martin F key heal potential with its guns. So for example, if you want to kill a Sun Martin, the easiest thing to do is run a Loria up its ass and shoot it 2 or 3 times with sap, and the thing is fucking cooked. Cruiser and a battleship shooting it, like a Loria and a cruiser shooting it, and it's gone. GG. So while something like a Sun Martin may be now viable in comp, it's not for the reason that it's actually good against BBs. It's the reason that there's only one BB, and you can't really move the BB to the flank and commit it on only one Sun Martin. Because if the enemy Sun Martin realizes too early, it would just run away and stall you for so long that your battleship is out of the game on the flank, while the enemy BB probably does something and wins the game. So... But what's the point of Sun Martin in randoms? I don't fucking know. I guess it gets an F key and a super heal, so the battleship can death strike it twice. And then people maul that they didn't one-shot it, and it's like, bro, why are you even mad? Why are you even mad that you didn't one-shot the Sun Martin? Hello? Like, the thing doesn't deal damage to you back. It literally doesn't deal damage to battleships that are angled. It does not. It will never, ever fucking kill you. So, you didn't one-shot it? Well, great. You get to heal it. Or he gets to heal, and you get more damage. You can death strike him twice. It's perfect, right? Cool design. Yeah? So, I don't know. Going on to the, maybe, like, comparing it a bit more to the other BBs. As I said in the beginning, it's a bit more tolerable as a cruiser or a DD than, maybe not a DD, honestly, because it has such high shell volume that it pretty much shits into you. Especially gunboats don't really do much against it. But as a cruiser, it doesn't point and click you. But as you know, AP, you don't really need to shoot HE. You will see at the end of the game as well that he shot 1 HE volley and the damage output is still insane. I mean, the entire damage comes from AP only because you can basically just shoot superstructures or upper belts with AP and you get insane damage anyways. So even if it doesn't overmatch you, it means you just may live a bit longer, but in the end it can still kill you even if you're angled in a cruiser. Specifically close range, this car here would still murder any cruiser. It's the same thing as Wisconsin. It doesn't overmatch everything at any range, but it does get the shell volume to fuck you close. Wisconsin gets the accuracy to fuck you close. So tolerable, yes. Broken, yes. Still broken. Also, given the fact the argument is on Wisconsin, the car is insane in randoms because people will never angle properly in randoms. People do show broadside a lot, and as you could see in this game, the battleships and the cruisers showed a lot of broadside, so your shell volume just shits into something. The damage output is higher, in fact, than a Montana. You have the 16 shells are worth more with 0.1 sigma less than the 12 on Montana. And your higher base HP pool and F key do make you more survivable, which will net you more volleys on average per game. And also, you can count in Halsey again. I mean, all these USN BBs are a specific kind of brain damaged for especially good players, because Rhode Island, Wisconsin, Ohio, Vermont, and now Maine, you can always get Confederate procs on them, and a battleship with minus 20% reload. I mean, they're obviously not balanced around the Halsey Confederate. USN ships never get balanced around Halsey Confederate, otherwise Annapolis wouldn't be a boat in the game, or Sherman. They wouldn't exist. Interesting though, because Italian ships kind of get balanced around the fact that Sansonetti exists. USN ships apparently don't. So for us, let's say unicums or really good players, or even like slightly above average players, it's very interesting to just play these boats with Halsey on cooldown, because you will get a Confederate more often than not if you stay alive, which is, as I said, very simple in those BBs. And since you stay alive a lot, or a very long time, you will get to shoot different targets, which means you will probably get to shoot 6 targets for 20% and get your Confederate. And that also means that the longer the game goes on, the more likely it is you become a DPM machine anyways through Confederate. Is it 20? Is it 30% reload? I don't even know. I don't fucking care. So yeah, we have 454k damage in a non-arms race game. Very nice, very nice. No HE has really been shot, which also goes to show that he had 11 citadels, but 11 citadels only account for, what kind of damage is that? 150k, 160k maybe. So basically 300k in sheer AP pens and over pens. which goes to show that AP is not working, let's say, as perfect as intended, where it's like someone angles, you don't deal damage. That's complete bullshit. Hubris, even, because sure, I can play a Patri, Satsuma, Uchakov and point-and-click people, but I can also play a 16-gun Montana and just shit my volleys into the superstructure and get 20k anyways. So, I don't know. I don't really see the difference here. I don't see why people are complaining about these boats not having overmatch. To be fair, I would rather like to see way more cruisers with at least 32 armor and way more battleships with non-overmatching guns. So there finally is some more positionally based gameplay with the battleships, and finally they maybe accept that tanking is a part of their job, right? So like this car taking 4 or 5 people's damage off for like 2 minutes probably allows some of your teammates to deal damage back while not taking any in return, and that's a form of game impact. Battleship players don't see that anymore. Battleship players are very narcissistic. They think their job is only to one-shot people when they're flat and constantly blow up enemy ships, while other classes still have to basically do other things than dealing damage to find game impact and win the game. And most of these most of the players on other classes also accept that. You have a radar cruiser, well, your radar is sheer utility. You can spot the DD for yourself, yes, but you also automatically keep caps because of that, and you shoot the DD. You radar the DD for the team. The torpedo DDs, or DDs in general, they also have to spot. They also have to cap. Lots of their gameplay is not dealing damage, but also doing objective things, or spotting for the team, or laying a smoke for the team and doing team play. What exactly are battleship players on about when they only care about their fucking main gun volleys on enemy target and everything has to go poof? And their tanking is apparently out of the picture. How can like battleship players not be happy that all of their super BBs and all of their tier 10 BBs are basically insanely tanky? That's insane. That's correct. That's like basically the best analogy here while I go through the screens is the moment a ship from another class doesn't have to respect everything, which would be Petro, because Petro is insanely busted too, because it doesn't have to respect DDs, it gets Hydra and Radar. It doesn't have to respect battleships, because it doesn't get overmatched and it has an icebreaker. And it doesn't have to really respect cruisers, because it has the guns to deal with them. And the DDs, the guns are insanely strong against essentially every class, but basically you can shatter cruiser HE, you can Radar and Hydra DD torps and Radar DDs. And you can tank battleships because they don't overmatch you. Everyone is losing their mind because Petro doesn't have to respect a lot of shit. And it's busted as fuck. Well, those battleships are the same thing. They don't have to respect anything but torpedoes, basically. Like, you don't even have to respect subs. Don't give me that shit. Battleships are the least affected class through submarines. Like, now that submarines have been changed, DDs have an easier time against subs, because they can't be shotgun anymore, which is good. They can also actually do something against submarines. Still, most DDs get outspotted by subs, so they still have a fucking anus time, because if they get outspotted, even if they force spot the sub can basically draw you in because you want to spot it, and then it can go unspotted. So it's still a shit engagement. Battleships don't have to respect subs. You can just keep your distance and kite. Battleship homing is insane. Once again, your ASW range is the highest and the easiest to use, and you can actually deter the sub from doing whatever he wants and ping the entire time, because you can actually target him and most likely hit him if you kind of know what you're doing. And you can just dodge the torps or DCP for 30 seconds, as I said on the Wisconsin video. And oh, bro, don't get me started. And now with the AA skill, you kind of also have an insane means of dealing with carriers, at least a bit better. Cruisers have to invest 4 points for that, and cruisers don't have the HP pools and armor to deal with the carrier armament as easy. Also, cruisers suffer more from carriers dropping them with torpedoes and forcing them into a basically immediate crossfire from torps and enemy guns. So I don't know what battleships are complaining about. You don't have to respect shit anymore. The only thing you have to respect is the fucking demented torpedo DDs that barely exist, that run it into your ass because your team is stupid and they torp you out. That's like the only thing you have to be scared about on a battleship. The rest is whatever the fuck. It doesn't kill you. You know what you're doing. So here you see it, by the way. He only shot AP. There's no HE spam. Basically just AP damage only. He did shoot down a lot of planes, actually. There's no fighters in there. He did get a few planes here. The AA is definitely potent. And here you can see also like the 4 million potential damage. It's insane. Like 4 million pot damage. He used 5 heals. If he gets the carrier in the end, he's on 475k damage or something. Probably would be a record for a while. It's non-arms race, so it actually is really impressive. Yeah, and well, not making a lot of money on the car because it's a super ship, but apart from that, great game, insane. It goes to show how stupid that car is, even though it doesn't get overmatch. And well, I mean, people are still complaining that it's not, I guess, broken enough. And I don't know when it will end. Like, to end the video on, you always have to remember that if these battleships get released, and the battleships keep getting buffed, basically, or like power creeped more and more, the logical conclusion is that the cruisers and the DDs behind it get buffed too. So then you can't complain about the cruisers like Conda and Annapolis existing, when the only reason they exist in the form and the current state that they are is that the super BBs are basically nuclear fucking exterminators. So like, why does Annapolis get so much utility in DPM and weird armor scheme? Because it has no armor against super ships. Like, a super BB still shits on Annapolis because it has 30. So basically they just give it a bunch of utility and DPM, so it fucks on cruises and DDs even harder, and like, I guess, power crept BBs from the old days. Same for Conda. Why does it get such weirdly high HP, weird armor scheme, insane DPM and gimmiks and speed? Well, because it doesn't get armor. It's 30mm cruiser. It gets point and clicked anyways. So basic, and then because these cars exist, you get fucking dented DDs like Gdansk and shit. Because, yeah, well, first of all, people are too stupid to play cruiser and DD. Second of all, these super ships just shit on them. Gdansk is never going to kill a Maine. So guess we just give Gdansk smoke and radar so it shits on all other DDs, so it gets some value somewhere else. God forbid it's the value of the boat is killing battleships faster. Same thing for Castille. It originally had an F key that got damage and lots of penetration on the AP, which meant if battleships turn flat, you can actually citadel them even at mid to long range. Battleship players immediately had an outcry and an outburst of insanity, and they removed that F key gimmick entirely and only gave it like a burst fire. Like this, it's an F key, yeah, but it's just a burst fire, like the Spanish cars get now, like Alvaro. Like, they removed the actual gimmick of it because battleships got hurt, so battleship got complainy plane, and yeah, well, guess we have another useless cruiser in front of Castille. Well, that's it. Hope you enjoyed the replay. And I see you, I guess, for the Rhode Island video or another boat that I cover soon. Adios, and see you soon.